George Connor, who currently is the Deputy Director for Operations in the great state of Alabama.
My name is George Connor. I'm from the great state of Alabama, as said by my good friend, Bruce Johnson. It is my pleasure to be here, and it is an honor to be here and address you. I would like to clarify something is, yes, the Maintenance Committee is known as the MAC. We're the MAC Daddy of the AASHTO committee structure. And the person who inhabits the chair is the Big Mac. And that's not just a fat joke, okay? I will say, though, that AASHTO hasn't officially blessed that, but it's never stopped maintenance people from doing what has to be done, and that's who we are, okay? This is an opportunity, I guess, that is unique to be at a meeting like this. And let's start and set the framework for that by talking about the lifespan of a bridge, since this is bridge preservation. Everything that's out there, every bridge that we have, somebody at some point conceived the need. In a transportation network, we need a route to go here. To do that, we're going to align the road there, this place instead of that place after I evaluate it, and that scenario requires a bridge. There is a planning component. And the people that do planning, it's important work, but when they finish, they hand that off to somebody else. There's a group in every DOT that's responsible for the design of that bridge. And what they do is important. And it's not easy. But when they're at the end of that design, they hand it off to somebody else. It then goes to people who build that bridge. Construction is important. It's important they get it right. It is not easy. But at the end of that construction project, all those project people hand that bridge off to somebody else. They move on to the next project. Then at the end of that chain, that bridge is now in service. And it belongs to people who maintain it, who preserve it. And there is no handing it off. It belongs to that group for the rest of its life. And that is not a small undertaking. And even though those groups that I mentioned before do good work, sometimes either circumstances change or things are overlooked. And how many people here have, in their maintenance roles, in their preservation roles, received a bridge, a road, anything that didn't need some work almost from day one? Preservation is a lifetime of that asset. It is exceedingly important, and it is becoming more so every day. If you're from a state that recently, and there are some states recently that were able to raise their local revenues, I'm from a state that has been unsuccessful in the last several legislative sessions. But if you're from a state, I bet you still do not have enough money to handle all the problems that you face. Preservation will always be a fundamentally important and increasingly important part of what DOTs do. Preservation is a culture, if you will. It is not bridges versus pavement versus anything else. Everything that we have, that we've invested, that goes into the operation of our transportation network must be maintained and preserved. Preservation is protecting that infrastructure investment. There is a moral and ethical obligation that we have asked the public, us being part of that public, to invest billions of dollars into something. It is wrong to let it go to rot. We have an obligation to do that, to make sure those assets are able to function as both that they are intended and as they are needed. And why do I make that distinction? How many bridges do you have that are now in operation way beyond any design life that they were conceived of? We need these things to do more than they were intended for. We routinely have routes that carry way more traffic than they were designed to carry, and there is no expansion of capacity in sight, or at least in the near future. You must make things do what they were intended to do and more, and that is the heart of preservation. Preservation projects are rarely grandiose, large, complex, or attention-grabbing. They tend to be, give the appearance of being minor, insignificant, routine, and boring. It's not the things that politicians campaign on, right? It's the kinds of things that is the routine, everyday operations that get very little attention. However, the truth of the matter is this: even if they're not large and sexy and appealing, an effective preservation program is difficult and challenging. Make no mistake about that. It requires discipline, focus, attention to detail, commitment, tenacity, problem solving, and passion. The states and the people that are most effective at preservation have those characteristics. Preservation is not easy. TSP2 exists to serve the needs of state agencies who are engaged in local agencies that are engaged in this fundamentally important activity of preservation. And there's much going on at this national program to help them advance those programs. I want to draw your attention to TSP2 and some of the roles that it does. TSP2 is a great resource. It exists to serve the very people that are in this room and your peers and coworkers that are back at your home agencies. Just looking at the website, and that's not even talking about staff resources, just looking at the website, there's Preservation Awareness Toolkit. Do you need help convincing your leadership? Or if you have to go to a county commission meeting or a town council hearing, or you're asked by one of your state legislators, why are we doing X versus Y? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing whatever it is you're doing instead of what I want you to do, which is in my district or according to who's complaining? That Preservation Awareness Toolkit in its current form is pavement centric, but the principles in there are very useful and for anybody promoting or trying to advance a preservation program. There's research roadmaps. There's a bridge video library. If you take a look at that, there is an amazing amount of information from past meetings and from all kinds of sources. It's there and available for anybody to access and use. Bridge preservation blog, legislative matters, training materials. Preservation in its execution is about people doing the things that I mentioned before. How do they do that? They are trained. They know what to do. They know when to do it. They know what works. They know what doesn't work. Training is essential. There is a wealth of training materials that TSP2 makes available to you. And here's a rub, not a rub, here's a kicker, here's a bonus. When you use TSP2 resources, you in turn make TSP2 stronger. It's a beneficial cycle that builds each other up. It exists to serve you. When you use it, you make it stronger, and therefore it is better able to serve you and your peers the next time around. Bruce mentioned he is a member of the TSP2 Oversight Panel. I have the honor of serving as the chair of that panel. Our oversight meeting, our annual oversight meeting that we have in person was held yesterday. So thank you to all the panel members that traveled on Saturday to get there. The committee members are from 4 different committees. TSP2 is a maintenance technical service program. The maintenance committee, the MAC, has 2 other technical service programs: the Equipment Management Technical Service Program, EMTSP, and the Winter Weather Technical Service Program, known as SICOP. So there's 3 technical service programs that are near and dear to our hearts, and TSP2 is a jewel in that crown. There are 3 other committees represented in that oversight panel. The Committee on Bridges and Structures, the Subcommittee on Asset Management, and the Committee on Materials and Pavements. The panel members, these are from the ones that were able to attend the meeting. This doesn't count our vacancies that we have yet to fill. You have a great representation on the bridge preservation side. Our vice chair is Greg Freeby from Texas DOT, Bruce Johnson, Dave Juntanen from Michigan DOT, and Jeff Milton from Virginia DOT. Some of the other panel members, myself as chair from Alabama, Brad Darr from North Dakota, Colin Franco from Rhode Island, John Selmer from Iowa, and then our Federal Highway Liaison is Tom Everett. The day-to-day management of the TSP2 program is through the leadership and the staff of NCPP, and TSP2, make no mistake, is an AASHTO program, so it exists in that AASHTO organizational structure and operates according to the AASHTO system. Let's talk about the conference here for just a minute. This is a unique meeting. Many of you will go to meetings where bridge preservation will be a topic, and there will be people there, that vendors and others, but you rarely go to a meeting where it is the only topic. It is the singular focus of the entire meeting. This meeting has a wonderful participation by vendors who have that singular focus on bridge preservation. They are a great resource, and I hope you make great use of them every opportunity you have in the exhibit hall. This is a meeting that has excellent presentations from your peers that are focused solely on bridge preservation and the issues associated with it. And most importantly, this meeting is an opportunity for you to network among your preservation professionals. The best part of this meeting is what happens after this meeting. What you take back with you, the relationships and the connections that you've made, and who you know to call when you've got an issue. So-and-so, I remember, covered, they did something like that in their state. Oh yeah, I've got their contact info here. Let me give them a call. That's the best thing that you can get out of this meeting. Some of the things I want to highlight when you look through that agenda, and this is by no means exhaustive, the session that immediately follows this one, best presentations from regional partnerships. TSP2 is all about states and agencies learning from each other, and this session that follows us does a couple of things very well. It showcases excellent work, and it acknowledges those that did it. These are presentations that were given at regional partnerships and were deemed really good and were identified that they need to make sure we bring that forward to the national meeting. And it allows everybody here to benefit from hearing them. If you were from a regional meeting where you heard it already, then you're blessed to hear it a second time. For everybody else, you're getting the benefit of it. The classic topics, though, the routine things, in air quotes, that we have to do all the time are just as timely and important as they have always been. Just preservation for local bridges, repair and maintenance of large and major structures, protective coatings, joints and bearings, the bane of our existence, emergency response and repairs, inspection, condition assessments, etc., asset management. Asset management, as was emphasized in Tom's talk and with Bruce's follow-up question, is an increasingly important. Bridge management systems, asset management systems and plans, and performance measures are now a part of our everyday business in a way they haven't been before, and hear me clearly, they are going to get even more so. It's both legislatively, because of the things that are in the federal acts, but also because it's what moves the needle. Did you hear Florida's example? Why are their bridges where they are? He attributed requirements and performance measures that they are committed to meeting. Deterioration modeling helps us see the future of our network. I have to plan, especially preservation is everything we do, not just preservation, but everything we do in transportation requires funding. Funding is a finite resource. I have to plan financially to maximize what I'm going to spend, and I cannot plan accurately or efficiently on my network unless I get a good idea of where's it going to be, not just right now, but where's it going to be 5 years, 10 years from now. Preservation is a fundamental component of an agency's long-term structure. I want to take I got 3 or 4 slides here that I want to talk just very briefly. Many of you that routinely go to AASHTO committee meetings have probably seen this information, but many of you I recognize in this room have not, and I want to share this with you. AASHTO in the last couple of years has undergone a fundamental shift in its committee structure. not just the highway program through the federal legislative, but AASHTO has done that as well. If you look on the screen, you can see what most people would recognize as the traditional, historically common AASHTO committee structure, where there were subcommittees, subcommittee on maintenance, subcommittee bridges, materials, etc. And in our case, we all reported to a standing committee on highways, and they then reported to the board of directors. But if you look, there were at least four standing committees, and all of the subcommittees under each one kind of were in this vertical arrangement. Not much this, it was all this, okay, up and down, not much cross communication. This is the new AASHTO committee structure, and it's been in place about a year and a half, 2 years approximately. And if you notice, there are fewer committees, so that goes along with streamlining. And instead of being in a vertical arrangement, they're in a box. And instead of each one reporting to only its corresponding standing committee on highways, all of these groups now report to this Transportation Policy Forum made up of councils. The councils are oriented around modes, right? So there is a mechanism in place that both fosters and reinforces participation, collaboration, and cross-communication between committees. We had a wonderful discussion about that in the Oversight Panel meeting yesterday relative to some things that have happened with maintenance, construction, and materials committees. Why did they make that change? Well, they were looking, the AASHTO executive leadership and the strategic group, which is AASHTO, state AASHTO leaders who are participating, had these things in mind. They wanted to better define the roles and responsibilities of the committees. They wanted to improve direction from parent committees to subgroups. They wanted to establish steering committees within committees. And last bullet on that slide, identify cross-cutting liaisons between appropriate committees. You can't do preservation without locking arm in arm with materials, because preservation is done by and large with materials. So it makes no sense that in the maintenance community that we don't have a good working relationship with, at a minimum, our brethren that are on the materials side of the world. This committee structure helps make that more possible. Some of the other procedural changes, that the technical service programs are guided by the appropriate committee. And as I mentioned before, the maintenance committee has the three: SICOP, equipment management, and TSP2. And as the chair of the maintenance committee, we take that relationship very seriously, and we appreciate greatly the benefit that those three technical service programs bring to both the committee and the maintenance community as a whole. Groups are encouraged to operate virtually, formalizing the role of associate members, and in a formal way allowing limited participation in the AASHTO committee structure by private sector representatives. So, in closing, I encourage you to make the most of this national meeting. This is a great opportunity. Do not waste it. That includes meeting people, making friends, because what happens afterwards is the most important thing that happens here. Visit the vendors, participate in the demonstrations. If you've ever put on demonstrations or been involved in a program, it is an enormous effort. The payoff is enormous also, but only if you are there to participate and see it. So I encourage you, tomorrow morning, make every effort to be there. And then take back 2 or 3 ideas, share them with your agency, look for something that you can implement.
So my question for you is, traditionally the AASHTO committees have in fact been pretty parochial and focused on their own particular areas of expertise. Do you see any signs or have any examples of this change in organizational structure? Is it really going to help the committees work closer together?
There is no organizational structure that's immune from people, right? And so if you've got people that are just convinced, I'm going to stay what I want to do, then I guess that's possible. But to answer Bruce's question, this structure absolutely facilitates that in a much easier way than the previous structure. And an example I referenced just a little bit was the collaboration between maintenance and construction and materials. There is, in the pavement preservation world, there's construction guide specs for pavement preservation that are about 10 years or more, maybe 11 years since they've been updated. And that's critically important to both construction, to materials, and to maintenance. But those documents live in the construction committee. That's part of their responsibility. But I'm happy to say, and we could spend a lot of time going through the very good work that was done to get there, but I'm happy to say that with the spring meeting, AASHTO will bless a formalized collaboration in which Materials Committee, using their structure, timeline, and technical committee setup, will facilitate the updating of those specs, and in a very unprecedented but welcome move, their tech section 5B, which is for preservation, not of everything, but it's where they look at preservation specs. There are going to be 5 formal members added to that tech section from construction committee, up to 5, and up to 5 formal members added to that tech section 5B from maintenance committee. So it is a collaboration that I don't think would have happened before, and we count it as a great success story. And to my counterparts at the materials committee and the construction committee, and myself, it was not an easy path to get there because we have tendencies to be parochial, but we're also professional, and we solved a problem, and the new structure helped make that possible. Thank you very much.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.